So we all know how tough a year it's been, and each and every one of you, whether you're an elected official at the county level or an appointed official, you've really had to step up to the plate. And I know in my home county, I live in Nassau County, the local governments, county, town, village, we only have 2 cities, so you were the ones on the front lines of communicating, letting people know about all the public health concerns that were out there, letting people know about the support, especially for our small businesses, that was becoming available. So I really want to thank you for getting us through the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic. We know we lost too many people, and I certainly hope everyone here is safe and well, and your families. But I want you to know, through it all, we tried very hard to be as supportive as we could to our local governments. We had, as you know, on our website, our section on help for local governments managing through COVID, the financial toolkit for local officials. We retooled our training program to provide as many offerings as possible online so we wouldn't miss the opportunity to still reach out to local officials. We actually, through the past year or so, had 64 training sessions. We reached 10,000 local officials, not just county officials, but we work with NYSAC, Association of Towns, School Board Association, NICOM, and so on. And although our audit schedule was somewhat delayed by everything going on because you couldn't do the on-site visits, I know that pained you to hear that our audit schedule was delayed and we're a little behind on that. We did keep that work going, and we are getting back into business in that regard. And of course, the audits are meant to be a help and an opportunity to make government more efficient. Fortunately, it is rare, but I can't say it doesn't happen, where we find people doing the wrong thing in government, and sometimes we have to deal with law enforcement to take care of that, and you're all familiar with that. But the good news is, in most of the cases, what we're really finding are opportunities for improvement. And of course, in some cases, we find that things are going just fine. And we post this information on our website for it to be a learning tool for you to see the right way to do things. I do want to give a shout out to our local government team, work closely with Steve and NYSAC, and Elliot Auerbach, who many of you know is our Deputy Comptroller for Local Government and School District Accountability. Elliot's right there, stand up and wave. So Elliot was one of you. He was the elected controller for Ulster County. And as I always point out, if you get an audit and you're happy with the result, I'm personally responsible. If you don't like the result, it's Elliot Auerbach and what he did, so, complain to him. I know some of Elliot's people are here, and again, as part of our partnership, I think we have some of our retirement folks here, unclaimed funds, oil spill. So as always, we're here to be a resource to you. So the good news is, COVID seems to be in the rearview mirror for now. We hope that will continue. We are expecting better days. The Omicron variant, which for us, probably for many of you, we were starting to bring people back. Omicron hit, we told everybody to go home again. So we're now bringing people back into the workplace. Right now we're at about 50%, but we've been, keeping the health and safety of our employees and their families first and foremost. And just like all of you, I'm very proud of the work that our staff has done throughout these difficult 2 years. But when you look at the numbers that we always look at, again, there's reason for hope and optimism that we are digging out from the worst of what we've been going through, not just on the public health front, but from the economic and the budget front as well. As you know, the unemployment numbers have gotten better and better. We ended the year at about a little over 6% unemployment for the state, down from 8.7% a year earlier. We've recovered less than 70% of the jobs that we lost. We lost about 2 million jobs at the worst point of the recession that kicked in with COVID. So that's good news, but we're lagging the national numbers. Nationally, we've grown back as a nation about 90% of the jobs that were lost. And certainly when you look at our state, all the different regions, it's an uneven picture. By and large, we're doing better than many thought we would be doing at this point. But some regions are not doing as well as others. And frankly, New York City, which often is our economic engine, is still lagging in many ways. Again, given how hard the city was hit and how early, probably no surprise there. But we look at different indicators. I won't spend a lot of time on numbers, but sales tax collections, we regularly report on those, very important to you at the county level. In most cases, if not all, bigger revenue source than your property taxes even. And what we found is that, and many of you saw our report, local government sales tax collections increased by over 19% in the year 2021, the highest annual increase on record. That follows the historic low in 2020. Now, so you're going to say, well, Tom, 2020 was so bad, of course 2021 would be good. But what I think is even more significant is that the 2021 numbers are 7% ahead of where we were in 2019, the pre-pandemic numbers. So that's good news. It shows the economy's coming back, pent-up demand, consumer confidence, whatever it is. Nearly every county actually had a double-digit increase in 2021. Again, good news. How do we temper that? Well, obviously, inflation is a concern. So to a certain extent, some of that is attributed to the impact of inflation. But I think even if you factor that out, you're still seeing pretty robust activity as measured by sales tax collection. So not just sales tax, but all the other taxes that we collect in the state really has had a significant impact on our revenues. Our January cash report, every month we put out a report on revenues and expenditures coming to the state. It shows that our revenues are still exceeding forecasts, even updated forecasts, to the tune of billions of dollars. It's really a combination of factors. It's the economy recovering faster than we had anticipated, certainly at the start of this budget year. It's reflective of the fact that the legislature and the governor in this year's budget had increased taxes on upper-income New Yorkers, and personal income taxes are coming in even higher than projected. And obviously, the big game changer for us at the state level, and for you at the local government level as well, has been the unprecedented billions of dollars coming into New York as part of the American Rescue Plan, the federal money that's come in. So that's put us on much more secure financial footing than I think many of us expected we would be on going back just a few months ago. So it's budget season. I'm sure you've been going over all that, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but just some of the top line comments. I think, as you know, for the first time in anyone's memory, there are no out-year budget gaps projected as part of the state's financial plan. Steve, when's the last time that happened? I don't remember it, actually. It was so long ago. The governor is proposing, and we think this is good news, to set aside a significant amount of money into reserves, building it up to the tune of some $19 billion. That echoes and follows through on some of the calls that we've made from the Comptroller's office over a number of years. A concern I have with her proposal, though, is that much of what she would dedicate in the new monies will be in what's called informal reserves, kind of money put aside to be there just in case. We argue that the money should be put into the state's statutory reserve funds, which takes additional steps to release that money, so you can't just use it for really what could be considered discretionary spending. But either way, I do hope the legislature will heed her recommendation. I hope they'll heed our recommendation that it be in the statutory reserves rather than in formal reserves. But we do need to recognize, with all the uncertainty going on right now, we can't assume that the strength that we're feeling today is going to be here forever. We also have to be mindful of the fact that we are, rapidly approaching the state's debt cap limit. So again, New York being a highly indebted state, another area of caution as we move forward. But that doesn't take away from the bottom line that where we sit today, we're on strong financial footing. The budget is more than in balance. So that's the good news. The bad news is everybody's got an idea about how to spend that money, and we need to be mindful that we can't be spending it all at once, and that's certainly the call that we continue to put out there. The federal money is not there forever, so again, as I've always said, if you're going to make new spending commitments, and if it's going to be of a recurring nature, make sure you've got recurring revenue to back up those commitments. A couple of quick updates again on issues that I know you're concerned about. AIM funding has been an issue of great contention, especially to your colleagues at the town, city, and village level, but it impacted you as well. And the governor's made proposals and changes that I think you're happy with, Steve, right? Basically, right? So AIM funding is going to go back to the level of $715 million, and that includes restoring AIM funding to those towns and villages and cities, towns and villages that had been cut. As you know, the funding for those villages and towns that were cut, the funding was replaced with county money, that intercept money of your sales tax, and the governor's proposing to eliminate that. You're happy about that, right? Okay. So, but AIM is an important issue because it is, just as we herald the federal support, without restriction that we've been getting. AIM is really revenue sharing, right? Remember that phrase from many years ago? It's state revenue sharing for localities. So we did a report to really look at the overall context of the AIM program. It's on our website. We just put it out recently. What we found is that AIM funding has been flat basically for the 8 years prior to 2020 when it was reduced by 8%. AIM funding is worth less today than it was when it was created back in 2006. And since 2011, when the tax cap was enacted, the value of AIM funding, when you adjust for inflation, actually declined by some 24%. There's also a lack of any consistently applied formula that takes into account the fiscal needs of municipalities. And I think that's a limitation for the program. Some municipalities provide a much more ambitious array of services than others, and yet that's not factored into the calculation. And I know some of you wear the hat of being town supervisors. That's why I'm talking about AIM for a bit. For those of you who just do the county work, don't worry about it. But, you don't want to see that intercept come back again. But I know Steve and the team have been looking at NICOM's proposal to build on AIM with the creation of an additional $210 million municipal incentive initiative that, again, would rely less on the legal title or type of municipality and more on the services that are provided. So I think it's something for us to consider. I don't know that it's going to be dealt with in this year's budget, but moving forward, I certainly have said, when you look over the past decade, certainly, how so many state programs, and I don't pick on our schools. I'm a product of public schools. I was a school board member, so I believe strongly in state aid for our schools. But you look at how much aid to our school districts has gone up, and AIM has been held flat or cut. Our local governments are important too, and I'm hoping there'll be a more serious look about revenue sharing to the benefit of our local governments, and you need to be at the table in that conversation. Obviously, the budget also makes big bets on healthcare, education, energy infrastructure. That's the big topic that we're all talking about, and that's, again, where the federal government becomes a key player in all of this. The Federal Infrastructure and Jobs Act is dedicating billions of dollars in new funding that we are going to have benefiting us in New York State. $13.5 billion for highways, $9.8 billion for public transit, $175 million to expand electric vehicle charging. So you see in the executive budget proposal a big bet on infrastructure, and a good bet. It helps us be competitive when we have quality infrastructure. In the short run, it puts people to work at good-paying jobs. So the governor's proposed a $92 billion five-year capital plan, 19% increase over the current plan. Again, highlights of what's in that plan: $25 billion for housing, $500 million for the development of offshore wind and electric generation, $500 million. This has been kind of a recurring new addition for clean water infrastructure, $400 million for the Environmental Protection Fund. I think, as you know as well, or you should be aware, there's a Bond Act proposal that will be voted on in November, an Environmental Bond Act. And the governor increased the original idea of this from $3 billion. Now it'll be at $4 billion. And as you know from past Bond Acts, the funding that will be provided there are a host of categories that you as local governments can participate in. So as we get closer to November, this will be something to take a look at. You'll want to keep your constituents informed about what's in there and what may benefit you at the local government level. CHIPS funding, always a big concern for our local governments, $538 million, unchanged for now, but it's always an issue that comes up when the legislature takes a look at it. Same thing for Marcus-Celli aid. Executive budget has $1 billion for broadband access. Broadband is a big issue. We put out a report last fall that still showed that nearly 14% of our households across the state do not have broadband access, and that's really a concern. It's particularly an issue in our rural communities. It's an issue among poorer households. It's an issue among seniors. So, as you know, the federal government is providing more support for broadband, but certainly the fact that the state wants to step up and do more in this area. The one thing we learned for sure during COVID is that we are dependent on the internet, on cell service, for work, for education, just for quality of life and being in touch with our friends and family. So whatever we could do to help in terms of that issue of broadband access, I think it's very, very clear that we need to do more there. We also put out some new reports looking at how we're doing transportation, obviously a big issue, money spent on local roads, and we found that again, the challenge at the local government level, probably no surprise to you, the amount of money spent over the past decade on our local roads, local government spending actually declined by 7% when you adjust it for inflation. So again, getting more money for infrastructure from the federal government hopefully will help to reverse that trend. Also, we looked at the Dedicated Highway and Bridge Trust Fund, followed up on similar reports we did on this back in 08 and 2014. Those of you who've been around for a while know that trust fund was set up to be pay-as-you-go, lockbox, money just for transportation. Well, as we pointed out in the past, we've used that money in other ways. Support for staff at Department of Transportation, motor vehicles over the years, used it to pay off debt. Now only 17 cents of every dollar of that fund is actually spent on roads and bridges. So we put this report out hoping that, especially now that the state's in a stronger fiscal position, we can reverse that. We could put that trust fund back to where it was expected to be. All of this means, whether at the state level or for you at the local level, we have this advantage to having money that we didn't expect that we would have looking back a year or two ago. In fact, we thought we were going to be faced with massive cuts. But it requires us to be smart and strategic and careful with how we're managing those dollars. And certainly recognizing that the federal money is not going to be there forever. In the short run, we just put out a report last week. Every year we put out, we call it the Moynihan Report. Those of you old enough to remember, Senator Moynihan always did the balance of payments between the states and the federal government, and New York is always a net giver to Washington. Well, we put out our most recent report, and guess what? For the first time, we actually are a net gainer. Now, that's good news. Every state was a net gainer this year, though, so I guess put it in the context. But we received $1.59 for every dollar we sent, up from only getting 91 cents back when we last did this report. So that's positive news. We received $146 billion more in federal funding than we paid in tax dollars that we sent to Washington. But again, my expectation is when things go back to a bit more normal, we'll probably still be a net giver. But if we can keep moving that figure as close as we can to parity, that certainly would be very welcome. We got to keep track of those federal dollars. We developed a COVID federal tracker program. It's on our website where we identify what are the various federal programs, how much money have we gotten, how much has been gotten out the door once we've received it. So, take a look at that if you're interested in those federal programs and how much is actually being spent down. We update that information monthly. I would just say to you the obvious, this is critical month, it's March. Big decisions are being made on the budget. I have every confidence the budget will be done by April 1st. It's not going to be the bad old days where we had those late budgets. So now is the time, especially while you're in Albany. I know you had your legislative committee and legislative discussions. Back Steve up on what he's arguing for. You have a very comprehensive legislative agenda, some of which is tied to the budget, some of which will be dealt with after the budget. But keep those relationships you have with your senators and assembly members. Very important, not only when you visit them, when you happen to be in town here, but what you do back home. I was a legislator for 2 decades, and I sometimes say to folks, you think the most important thing is coming to Albany, and it is important. What's even more important is the regularity of your contact with them at home. And they're all up for election this year, so keep that in mind as well, okay? Well, so is the Comptroller, so just so you know. So I do want to just mention a quick update. One of Steve Aquario's favorite issues on your behalf has been the spending in the area of preschool special education. And really, thanks to NYSAC, we were able to get additional support for more auditors to scrutinize the spending in this area. We couldn't have done it without you, Steve. I've said that many times before. We've issued now 159 audits of expenses submitted to the Education Department by preschool or school-age special ed providers. We've identified more than $93.8 million in recommended disallowances for claim costs for services. And going back a few years, this hasn't happened recently, there were like 5 arrests that came out of this. People really were they were stealing money outright from these programs. So we have another 11 audits that are in progress right now, so we're continuing that work. And thank you, NYSAC, for making that a priority for us. We appreciate that. So let me just wrap up. I know 1 or 2 of you are concerned about the pension fund. 3 or 4 of you are concerned about the pension fund. So I'll give you the good news and the concerning news, right? So the good news is we had a slight negative in 2020. Timing is everything. COVID hit like mid-March, March 15th, the close down happened, the economy shut down, literally the stock markets went way, 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 way down. We value the fund went, March 31st, end of the state fiscal year. So we had a slight negative in 2020. 2021, we came back strong. We didn't make any crazy moves. We had confidence in our asset allocation. We had a 33.5% positive increase last year. We never had an increase that large. We will never see one of those again, as I tried to tell everybody. December 31st for the quarter, we had a 4.74% positive return. So we've had 3 quarters, again, we're tied to the state fiscal year, of positive return. Our payouts are increasing. For the last quarter of 2021, we paid out $3.6 billion in benefits to our retirees and beneficiaries. As part of that historic increase in value that we had at the end of 2021, we did a couple of things. First of all, we reduced the contribution rate to our employers, and the overall effect of the reduction in the ERS system and police and fire was a savings to employers in New York State of $1.5 billion, so pretty significant savings opportunity. The other thing that we did is that we positioned the fund more conservatively for the future. Instead of our long-term goal being 6.8%, which for a public pension fund was already on the more conservative side, we lowered it to 5.9% long-term goal for what we expect our return to be. The last I looked, we're one of only 2 states that is below 6% in our long-term assumed rate of return. I think being more conservative makes sense. It made sense a year ago when we did it. It does have an impact, though, on costs, right? When you lower your assumed rate of return, you assume that you're going to make a little less. But because we had such a big run-up the year before, we were still able to reduce your contribution rate. Well, where are we at right now? Well, here we are again, mid-March. And going back to the Great Recession 11, 12 years ago, the stock market low point was mid-March. I mentioned COVID hitting mid-March. And now we have a war and a geopolitical meltdown of the economy. The markets are very volatile right now. Of course, we're not day traders, but this time of year I look every few minutes to see what's going on. The markets were a little better today. I don't know what's going to happen between now and March 31st. We hope this war will resolve for the people. I hope the war resolves so that we'll get stability back in the world economy. But it is possible we are not going to have a great year on the pension fund this year. Right? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball as to what March 31st is going to look like. So go to church, synagogue, or mosque between now and March 31st. Pray for the state controller and pray for the pension fund. But the good news is, from the point of view of those of you who are part of the system, when you're 99% funded, even going into a tough situation, we're going to get through it as we've done before. So retirement security is not an issue. For you as employers with that hat on, as I always try to explain, my job as trustee, it's not about anything other than keeping the plan as close to 100% funded as possible. I say that to the employers, so if we have to raise rates, it's because I need to keep the plan well funded. I say that to the employee groups and the unions, who when they hear things are good, want increased benefits. The retirees want a COLA. Everybody wants something. But I always got to say to folks, I got to look at the bottom line. And no one knew that Putin was going to do what he did. And no one knew what that was going to do to the markets. So that's why we just have to be very, very careful about all of this. But we are very mindful of how this impacts on you as employers. I'm hoping that things will at least be stable enough that we could still have a positive year. I'm glad we did reduce our long-term goal. It'll make it easier for us to meet that 5.9 number. But stay tuned and just be mindful that March 31st, the number on that day, that one day, is the number we hold in perpetuity in our calculation. So we'll keep you posted on what it'll mean for rates. I do want to mention we're continuing our retirement system redesign, the benefit side of what we do with retirement. So retirement online, it's meant to be easier for members of the system to really, on their own, manage their accounts, manage their affairs. But it's important to you as employers as well. So we have, as you know, our enhanced reporting system. It is meant to streamline how you're going to enroll members, maintain more accurate data on service credit and contributions, and give you a quicker response to the questions that you have. So far, 3 counties have made the transition to enhanced reporting. So a shout out to Jefferson, Putnam, and Tioga. We're very proud of you for being there. Let me just sum up very quickly and just say we've been through a tough time. We're in much better shape today, but we know we live in a very problematic environment right now. And because of our interconnectedness on a global basis, a lot of things happening impact us here in New York. But I have a great sense of confidence about New York's recovery. I have a great sense of confidence about the path that we're on. But as always, we need to be talking to each other. If we're going to be smart and strategic and wise with how we're spending our resources, we at the state level need to have your input as county officials and as local government officials. And that's certainly where your support for NYSAC, speaking with a united voice for this organization, becomes very, very key. So I really do commend you on your leadership at the local level. I certainly see it when I travel the state. I see it in my home county. And anything that we could do to support you and work with you, that's what we are here for. The last item I want to touch on, and I mentioned our unclaimed funds folks are here. So at some point today, you should go over there. Before you put your own name in, put in your county's name in to see if the county's owed any money, but then you could put in for your name and friends and family. We've got about $17 billion. It's not sitting in a treasure chest in my office. Most of that money has been spent, but we leave enough, the legislature rather, leaves enough in reserve for us to return this money because these accounts are held in perpetuity. Some of the accounts are in names of people who have passed away, will never be claimed. So I always say to folks, besides putting your name, your business, your nonprofit, your government, put in names of deceased relatives as well. You might be able to claim that money. It's easy to search on the web. So when you can't sleep tonight in the hotel at 2 in the morning, don't go on those bad websites. Go on the Comptroller's office website, read our reports, and look for unclaimed funds. But we did a quick search, and we want it to be worth folks' while. Now, I'm told my good friend and one of our great county executives, Patrick Ryan, is here from Ulster. Is that true? Where's Ulster? Where's Pat? Where is he? Where? Well, you're so tall. Usually I can't. You're sitting there. Get up here. So we found for Ulster County $951.75. The price is right. Yes, I have one more. Everybody say, is it my county? Is it my county? So Mike Zerlo, your first vice president, where are you? Clinton County. Now, Pat Ryan, don't get mad at me. $1,153.50.
Right here, Comptroller.
So Mike and Pat are proof. There really is money for your counties. So check, and if you don't have time to do it while our folks are here, just have your folks who do your business operations back home. They should, like every quarter, at least twice a year, they should check our website. We want you to get your money back, okay? Have a good time in Albany. It's great to be with you.